With December almost upon us, it is now fully draft season. The draft fever is up. The World Juniors are coming, and I think it's a great moment to put out our first mock draft of the year. It's still way too early. We're basing this off of the NHL standings today, but we've got a top 16 mock draft coming your way.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this show, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA Scout over at Elite Prospects. And on today's episode, we're going to be delving into the territory of mock drafts. And I'm going to have to add a massive asterisk to today's episode because, well, it is still November. And this year's NHL is about as tight as can possibly be. In certain divisions, there's only like 7 points separating first from last. There is going to be loads of movement in the standings for the remainder of the season, but I still think it's a fun exercise to do. It's a bunch of fun from my perspective as a scout, but I think on top of that, what's interesting with it and maybe where the value lies in listening to a mock draft done way too early, like this one is kind of getting a sense of which player types your team may be targeting. So whether your team ends up selecting top 5 as they're slotted right now or not, and end up maybe at 15th overall, the types of players, the profiles you're looking for, the things you still want to add, that can still remain consistent. So on today's episode, we're going to be breaking down the top 5 in the first segment, which will be the Calgary Flames, the Nashville Predators, Vancouver Canucks, Buffalo Sabres, and St. Louis Blues, before then moving on the second segment to picks 6 through 10, which belong to the Boston Bruins, New York Rangers, Edmonton Oilers, Chicago Blackhawks, and Chicago Blackhawks via the Florida Panthers. And last but not least, we'll wrap things up with picks 11 through 16 with the Winnipeg Jets, Boston Bruins, Columbus Blue Jackets, San Jose Sharks, Detroit Red Wings, and New York Islanders. So we've got a couple teams with multiple selections, but mostly teams that can definitely still move. I mean, San Jose could still pick top 8. The Boston pick that comes from the Toronto Maple Leafs could still be in the playoffs rather than top 6. A lot of changes will still come from these selections, but again, it's a fun thought exercise. And for the first one of the season, especially, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below about which players you think fit with particular organizations and styles of play and needs and what teams are missing. I'd love to hear your thoughts as well down below. But let's kick things off at first overall. And as things currently stand, that first overall selection would belong to the Calgary Flames based on points percentage. All of these rankings are current standings by points percentage. Nothing fancy about it, just straightforward because, well, it's going to be wrong no matter what, so you may as well just go for something that's pretty clear and concise as a ranking and in this little moment of time that we are in right now. But the Calgary Flames at number 1 to kick this episode off, gotta be Gavin McKenna. Especially Calgary, I think, selecting at number 1. This is a team in desperate need of a long-term superstar, a player to build around, a player to get the fan base as excited again as they once were around players like Jerome McGinley and Matthew Tkachuk. And Gavin McKenna is a very different style of player compared to both of those, but what he does bring is elite-level dynamism. This is a guy that could have Patrick Kane-level upside, more playmaking, less goal scoring perhaps, but that handling skill, the manipulation he has with the puck on his stick, the desire to have the puck on his stick all of the time and just constantly being able to make defenders miss, make intelligent plays, progress the puck up the ice, and make opponents pay all the time. The upside is stratospheric with Gavin McKenna, but there is a bit of risk. He's physically immature, 6 feet tall, but only like 170 pounds, and he's light for his weight, I would say, in terms of muscle mass. Definitely needs to still fill out his frame a decent amount. And the defensive engagement is very on and off. He can play with a motor, and especially on the forecheck, his defending in the offensive and neutral zones is actually, I think, a relative strength for a dynamic top 5 caliber prospect. He's quite disruptive, has a good stick, he anticipates play quite well. But in his own zone, the scanning just breaks down. He doesn't look around. He's not proactive enough. So there's definitely still things to work on with McKenna. But I think for the Calgary Flames, you take that risk. You take the swing for the highest upside you can. You make use of this first overall pick to just swing for the fences. And McKenna is just that. And I think that in terms of the prospect pool, there's no positional need that I think would trump the requirement of a guy that can change the outlook of the franchise, even as a winger, in terms of the way he plays the game. Then at number 2, we have the Nashville Predators. And here I have them going with Keaton Verhoff from the University of North Dakota, still in the NCAA. So we've got NCAA back-to-back at 1 and 2. And Nashville, I think Verhoff is made for that team. In terms of a player that could learn from and perhaps eventually take over in terms of two-way responsibilities from Roman Josi. I mean, Josi is a better skater than Verhoff is, but they're different styles of players, but they both have size. They both have good mobility. These are both two-way players with very high upsides defensively in their reads and a lot of talent as well with the puck on their sticks and handling, passing, really heavy shot with Keaton Verhoff. I think he's the exact kind of player that Nashville wants to build a team around, and they've already gone out and gotten some nice left shot defensemen like Cameron Reed in last year's draft. I think Verhoff would be a wonderful pairing mate for Reed down the stretch, and big right shot defenseman who can do everything, can be playing at 3-on-3 overtime, power play, penalty kill, even strength, doesn't matter. You ice them no matter what. Play 25 minutes a night. You're going to need a player to play that kind of massive minute role in Nashville beyond the Roman Josi years. And I think Verhoff would be a great fit there down the right flank on defense. At number 3, we have the Vancouver Canucks. And Vancouver needs a game-breaking center. And the best center in this year's draft class is Tynan Lawrence. So I have them going with Tynan Lawrence at 3rd overall. There may be higher upside players available here, like Ivar Stenberg, for instance, out of Sweden. But we saw Vancouver. They were desperate to gain a center at the draft this past year. They landed Braden Coots in the first round, which was a fantastic selection. But Coots is more of a second-line projection or a winger in terms of first-line upside, if he can reach that. But there's no guy to just be a very clear top-line center candidate. And Tynan Lawrence would be that, bringing speed, two-way details, intensity, intelligence, loads of intelligence, lots of playmaking ability too, strong handler, always attacking at speed, very pacey player. Plays the game, I think, in a way that Vancouver Canucks fans would love and that they've just missed because I don't think they've had a center play like Tynan Lawrence in their top 6 in quite a while, and he'd be a fantastic addition to that team. At number 4, we have the Buffalo Sabres. And I have the Buffalo Sabres just going for the highest upside, going for the pure talent, and that would be Ivar Stenberg here for Buffalo. They need a player to build around, and I think Ivar Stenberg has the upside, even as a winger, to be a cornerstone piece. And to get that at 4th overall is a luxury. I think the talent level here is higher than your average 4th overall pick for sure. Stenberg has an elite level intelligence. He's already playing fantastically at a point a game level in the SHL, which is the 3rd best professional league in the world behind the NHL and AHL, in my opinion. And what he brings is strong playmaking, very good puck handling, very dynamic on the puck. The skating isn't overly elite or anything like that. It's fine. Same with the physicality. He's very engaged. He works hard. He's heavy in battles, but he just doesn't have the frame to be powerful in and of himself. But I think that in terms of building a team around players like Stenberg and Zach Benson, where you're swinging on that elite intelligence, elite vision, and just like ability to elevate teammates on their lines. Having a guy, one of each of those on your top two lines would be a real luxury long term. But maybe Buffalo wants to go for a power forward instead, and Ethan Belchitz would be a great option there. There's loads of defensemen in this range, but they have a lot of left shot defensemen as well. Maybe they go right shot. There's definitely options down that route. So lots of options for Buffalo, but I think that Ivar Stenberg, if he's available here, would be a bit too much to pass up. Then to wrap up this first segment, we have the St. Louis Blues. And if we've heard one thing about the St. Louis Blues in the past 6 to 9 months, is that they need to get younger on the blue line. It's an aging defensive core. Players like Colton Parayko and Justin Falk will not be able to play forever at their levels, and they need to improve on the blue line and get young and get talented. And I think Chase Reed would be a fantastic fit here for the Blues. He's a right shot defenseman. He's got a really good frame on him, almost 6'3". He skates so fluidly, very elegant on his feet, can do so much through his movements. But what really brings that value up, especially from a St. Louis Blues perspective, is that he can play physically. He's very defensively engaged, very responsible and mature in his habits and details. He could be an NHLer within a year after being drafted. St. Louis is going to want a quick turnaround on whichever player they select on the blue line here, because they need reinforcements ASAP. Chase Reed, I think, would be the best option in this range. Ryan Lynn could be another guy as well, but I think Chase Reed, with our combination of right shot, size, maturity, offensive upside, which he does certainly have as well, you can't really look beyond that. There's top pairing upside with Chase Reed, and St. Louis needs exactly this type of player. But that wraps things up here for the first segment. In the next one, we'll be going through picks 6 through 10, kicking it off with the selection that the Boston Bruins are getting from the Toronto Maple Leafs in that Brendan Carlo deal from the deadline just over, 6 months ago. But before we dive into that, we got a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. All right, let's keep this show rolling as we're going through our first mock draft of the year. I gotta say I missed it. Mock drafts are a fun little thought exercise, and it seems that the audience always enjoys them as well. So I'm happy to do it once again. And let me know if it's too early for this. I mean, we're probably going to be doing, 7 mock drafts over the course of the season, maybe one per month or so between now and the draft. Just always keep updating it with the standings, with the rankings, how things are looking. It can be a nice little thing to keep going. But let's kick things off here with the 6th overall selection, and the Boston Bruins are stepping up to the podium. And I think the player that they could be enticed by with that pick from their division rivals in Toronto would be Ethan Belchitz. Massive power forwards, got a lot of kind of flair of Juraj Slafkovsky in his game, that combination of violence and power and middle drive, but complemented by really high-end skill as a puck handler, as a passer, very creative with the puck on his stick, still figuring things out, still a bit raw in his decision-making offensively, can still be gaining more consistency. He's not a finished product by any stretch of the imagination, but you see a very clear role for him in the NHL in his future. And also a very strong fallback game. If the skill doesn't carry him all the way up like we think it will, this guy's going to be a wonderful middle six power forward. But if the skill hits, this could be a top line power winger who can score goals, set up his teammates, handle in a phone booth, do a bit of everything while really bringing that viciousness, the meanness. He has all of those physical elements that you want in the playoffs. The Boston Bruins would love a player of that profile. At 7th overall, we have the New York Rangers, and I struggled a bit with this one. I don't fully know how the Rangers would want to go. They are in an interesting spot right now. Maybe they want to swing on offensive upside. Maybe they want to go for a guy that can help them in the shorter term if they still want to keep some of this core together and still keep competing in the short to medium term. So I have them going with Ryan Lynn from the Vancouver Giants in the WHL, perhaps the most refined and detailed defenseman in this year's draft class at this point in time. He's average size, but strong skater, meticulous in his defensive reads, very aware, constantly scanning the ice, very intelligent, quick. Is rarely is caught a beat behind the play. This guy can really do a bit of everything, whether it be disrupt the rush when it's coming in towards him, getting pucks out cleanly in the breakout, connecting plays in the offensive zone, and really being a quarterback from the blue line. There's a bit of everything. The question I think I have with Ryan Lynn is there any offensive element that's elite with this player? And I'm not quite sure yet. But you do get a guy that's very projectable to the National Hockey League, has a lot of tools that you're looking for, and has been showing night in, night out that he has all the details already. You don't have to teach him how to play a responsible, mature, intelligent game. He's got that on wrap. What you want to foster is going to be a bit more of that dare and the exploration of his on-puck game offensively. And I think that the New York Rangers would really like a player of this kind of toolkit. We've seen in the past that they're not averse to playing young rookies at 19, 20 years old, even on the blue line, like Braden Schneider, for instance, when they're still very young. And I think that Ryan Lynn is the type of player that could be playing NHL minutes at 19 or 20 years old, and that can make him quite appealing to the Rangers. At number 8, we have the Edmonton Oilers, and I have them going with Carson Karls, a really versatile left shot defenseman who skates wonderfully, very strong defensively, loves to land big hits. He's physically engaged, tough to play against, powerful skater, loves to exit the puck right down the middle lane in the breakout. He's just as comfortable as a puck carrier as he is a breakout passer. That versatility, I think, is just worth his weight in gold. And he's already very physically mature. He's over 200 pounds at 6'2". And in the offensive zone, he connects plays with real pace. He's been showing more and more of a daring activation game, rotating with forwards, getting low in the offensive zone, trying to make things happen from the dangerous areas. And I think the Edmonton Oilers, having a guy that could eventually take over from Darnell Nurse down that left-hand side as your top pair defenseman, would go a long way. And Carson Karls has that upside completely. And the Oilers will have watched him a lot this season as he's playing in Medicine Hat in the WHL. At number 9 and 10, we have back-to-back picks from the Chicago Blackhawks. The first being their own, and the second being the one that they got from the Florida Panthers in that Seth Jones deal. I have them going for two very different players here. First, at number 9, we'll see if he drops this far. I hope he doesn't, but he might. I have Xavier Villeneuve going to the Chicago Blackhawks. Maybe a team picks him up earlier. I think he should go top 5 based on talent alone, but teams are historically averse to undersized offensive leading defensemen this high up on draft day. But Xavier Villeneuve has every single tool in the book and deserves consideration higher than this. But for the time being, I think NHL teams would be more comfortable with him around this range rather than top 5. So I have the Chicago Blackhawks landing themselves an absolute steal at 9th overall with a player that definitely has that Lane Hudson upside. And I know everybody's saying this. I'm saying it every time I bring up Xavier Villeneuve as well. I swear I'll stop talking about this comparison at some point. But it's so difficult not to compare him with Lane Hudson. The way that he moves is more fluid than Lane Hudson was in his draft year by a pretty good margin. And he's also bigger, taller than Lane Hudson was in his draft year. And it has more proactive intensity on the defensive side of the puck than Lane Hudson did in his draft year, while still bringing every single element that made Hudson so special with the puck on his stick offensively. The creativity, the playmaking, the slipperiness, the evasiveness, the ability to beat his check, to outwork opponents, to win battles he has no business even being in. That's Xavier Villeneuve's game, and I think that the Chicago Blackhawks, in terms of future ideal partners for Artem Levshunov, once he really refines the defensive side of the game, which fingers crossed will happen, Xavier Villeneuve, that could be a disgusting top pairing. And with Villeneuve running your first power play unit, you could have Kevin Korchinski being a bit more sheltered as well, and maybe being like one of the better PP2 QBs in the league if he hits his upside. Either him or Levshunov can play that role. And then you also still have down the left flank Alex Vlasic as your elite shutdown defenseman. That would be really, really nice in terms of left shot defense depth if they end up going this direction. But at number 10, I have them going for a center. So we got one forward, one defenseman. And with the center, just to offer a bit more versatility, right? Because with Bedard, I think there's still a couple questions whether he plays wing or center, ideally in the long term. And now you have Anton Frondel in the team. Who is the other guy that could really be a top six center and push Bedard to the wing? I think Yegor Shilov is that guy in this year's draft class. He's my second favorite center in this class by a fair margin. Definitely not competing with Tynan Lawrence, but not competing with anyone below him either. I think he's really set himself above the pack among the centers in this year's draft class, even amongst the Ryan Rubricks of the world, who has perhaps a bit more individual, at least pedigree, I guess. I was going to say skill, but I'm not sure that's even true, because Yegor Shilov is a highly intelligent, highly skilled, and creative centerman. Fantastic playmaker. Think Nick Suzuki style guy. The playmaking, the intelligence, the play driving, the control of the game when the puck is on his stick. You're going to want to see him improve his skating a little bit. That top speed could use some work, and the overall pace, and not always trying to slow things down, but being able to speed things up a bit more often as well would go a long way. But this is a type of player that could play wonderfully with guys like Frank Nazar or Oliver Moore or Nick Lardis, or of course Connor Bedard as well. All these players, I think Yegor Shilov is the type of high IQ guy that can complement them in any which role, and would really complete the Chicago Blackhawks pool in such a wonderful way. But that wraps things up here for the second segment. In the final one, we'll wrap things up with picks 11 through 16. But before we do that, a quick message from our sponsors here at Locked On NHL Prospects. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything, from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at an even bigger payout. I know it's my favorite way to play the game because it allows me to combine multiple different predictions in order to maximize my potential returns. And it keeps every single game so very exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's wrap up the episode here as we complete the mock draft between picks 11 and 16. And we're kicking things off in Winnipeg, of all places, against all expectations at this point in the season. A team that, is 3-7 in their last 10. Has been struggling quite a bit here recently, but definitely a team that should still be making the playoffs. But hey, for this exercise, they are a top 11 selecting team. And with that type of value, I have them going for a player that could change the look of their defense core in the long term. And that is Albert Schmitz, the left shot defenseman from Latvia, playing in the Finnish Liga this season, who brings just so much fun to the equation. He's a very strong skater. He's physically a beast, very physically mature player. Strong puck handling, strong playmaking, very daring, taking lots of risks and gets burned sometimes, certainly, but he's a player with tremendous upside in the National Hockey League and a guy that I love watching play. He's found an absolute new level in his heights in the past 2 months, establishing himself as a full-time top pairing guy in the Finnish Liga, a top 5, top 6 pro league in the world. And he's been putting up some fantastic performances that are almost unmatched among draft-eligible defensemen in recent Liga history, including the likes of Miro Heiskanen. Yeah, sign me up. I think the Winnipeg Jets would love a player like this. He can reach as high as a top 5 slot if he keeps improving. The tools are elite. There's still some chaos in his game that will have to be reined in slightly, but I think the Winnipeg Jets would be elated to take on a project like this, even if he only hits the NHL 3 years down the road. Maybe it'll be less. I mean, he's already playing pro hockey. That shouldn't count for nothing, but yeah, Albert Schmeitz is a whole bunch of fun, and for the Winnipeg Jets, I mean, that could give them a true top pairing guy to build around as their elite players are entering the twilight of their primes, whether it be guys like Connor Hellebuck or of course Kyle Connor, Mark Scheifele. You want to have a young player on defense to grow with those elite players and take on a leading role when perhaps those stars take a step back. And I think Albert Schmeitz would be perfect in that role. At number 12, we have the Boston Bruins stepping back up to the plate, and I have them going with Malte Gustafsson. A big left shot defenseman, 6'4", playing with HV71 in the U20 Finnish League. And he's a guy that has a super intriguing skill set. He's big, he moves wonderfully, he's physically involved, he has massive defensive upside, one of the highest defensive upsides among players in this year's draft class. And his guaranteed floor of a third pairing player is just something that's found money in this range of the draft, even the mid-first, like getting a slam dunk NHL piece who could be a top 4, maybe even like a supporting piece on top pairing at the end of the day, maybe even a second pairing power play quarterback with his efficiency in transition as a puck mover. There's a lot to like, a lot of runway with Malte Gustafsson, and he's already showing that he's one of the more effective and reliable players in this year's draft class. And I think after selecting big power forward and Ethan Belchitz at 6th overall, the Boston Bruins would be so happy to shore up their defense long-term with Malte Gustafsson. Then at number 13, we have the Columbus Blue Jackets, and I have them selecting Oliver Suvanto, Finnish centerman, very mature, strong two-way details, one of the youngest players in this year's draft class, only about 11 days off of being eligible for next year's draft in 2027. Suvanto's playing against pro competition. He's not scoring the most just yet, but he's really showing off his high-end details, a strong defensive acumen, and a combination of size and physical skills and details and habits. This guy's tough to play against already at the men's level, and I think that combination is just going to be too appealing to pass up for a team like the Columbus Blue Jackets, who have a lot of elite players in their among the young players, like guys like Adam Fantilli, of course, Kent Johnson. The list goes on. Having a center who can just be a plug and play in your middle six to maybe be the guy who takes on the torch from a player like Sean Monahan down the road to be a solidifier for you in your middle six down the middle. I think Suvanto would have a lot of value for the Blue Jackets. At number 14, it's the San Jose Sharks' turn to step up to the podium. And I have them going for a mobile right shot defenseman who still has to figure things out a little bit in terms of where his identity truly lies, where his biggest strengths are, but has all the tools in the world to make it work. And that is Daxon Rudolph out of the WHL. A very strong skating right shot defenseman who breezes through big minutes against top assignments. This is a minute muncher in the making. And he was also a number 1 pick in the 2023 WHL draft. So he's got that long-term pedigree. He's so smooth and poised under pressure on puck, and that ability to just calm things down, be a soothing presence on the ice, be controlled in the breakout, difficult to beat against the rush, while still being able to create things in the offensive zone in flashes. I want to see those become a bit more consistent, but I think that in terms of the San Jose Sharks, in terms of needing a bit more value down that right side, I think that Daxon Rudolph would be a fantastic fit in that organization, where they are just adding piece after piece after piece of a future, not just contending team, but potentially a dominant NHL lineup. And Daxon Rudolph could certainly play his part in that future. At number 15, the Detroit Red Wings are up, and I have them going with one of their favorite profiles of players, and that is wingers who are incredibly difficult to play against, work hard, are direct and middle driven, and very physically engaged. And that would coincide with Adam Novotny of the Peterborough Petes in the OHL. He spent the entirety of last season playing pro hockey in Czechia before coming over to the O, and that is clear. This guy just takes over shifts in the Ontario Hockey League, and he's a guy with just so much pace and intensity, but he's also got quite a lot of skill. His hands are able to keep up with his skating at high speeds while he's crashing the slot, and he's able to chain crossovers together and shifts the puck around sticks until he gets to a shooting spot, and that shot is able to punish opponents. This guy would be a great fit in Detroit. They love to play this style of game. He would fit in like a glove. Then at number 16, to wrap up the show, we've got the New York Islanders, and I have them swinging for the fences on upside and goal scoring, because the last player to have scored more goals than Ryan Rubrick in his D-1 OHL season, John Tavares. If that's not a piece of foreshadowing, I don't know what is. I think that could be a really nice fit for the Islanders, but maybe having one player of this profile, I'm talking about Cole Eiserman as the other, as a player with an elite shot and a very questionable motor. Maybe having one of them in your lineup long-term in your top 6 is enough, but hey, the value would be here at 16th overall with a guy like Ryan Rubrick, big centerman from the OHL, really heavy shot, very skilled. He's just been very disengaged this season and clearly doesn't want to be playing in Niagara. If the Islanders determine that if he's in a different environment, that he looks like a top 5 contender like he was last season, yeah, I could see them swinging on him, and that would be a really high upside swing to take. And I think after adding the likes of Matthew Schaefer, Victor Eklund, Keishon Aitchison last draft, a guy like Ryan Rubrick could go a long way as well to add a bit more on the offensive side down the middle. But that wraps up this very first mock draft of the season. If you're watching on YouTube, please do let me know in the comments down below what you thought, what you would have done differently. And yeah, any thoughts or comments are always appreciated. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please do make sure to make us your first listen of the day. It's always something that we appreciate here on the channel. And yeah, I appreciate you tuning in, everybody. Thanks for listening. As always, I'm your host, Sebastian High, the USA Scout at Elite Prospects. And I'll catch you tuning in again very, very soon.